Harry, there's been a complaint about your contract. Victor, my mentor, gave me the heads up. Instantly, I felt a wave of cold sweat. Don't worry, though. I've already taken care of it. We just need to touch base later. Saying that, Victor whisked me off for drinks after work. He showed me the ins and outs of sales and guided me through handling client complaints. Man, I really look up to him. One day, I hope to have my act together like him, watching out for my team. Fast forward 5 years from then, I'm Harry, a 29-year-old employee. Post-high school, I was bouncing around doing random jobs, unable to nail down what I really wanted. Juggling multiple part-time gigs here and there, I was making decent bucks. But then out of nowhere, panic hit me like a truck, worrying about my future if I didn't land a steady job. That gave me the kick to start job hunting, but it wasn't a cakewalk. Among a handful of offers, I found myself in a company, placed in the sales department. That's where I ran into Victor, a real gem of a guy. 5 years my senior, super outgoing, full of energy, and incredibly supportive. The guy was born for sales. He schooled me on the job. Harry, you're so genuine, makes teaching you a breeze, he'd often say. But no matter how much he coached me, my sales numbers didn't quite pick up. I'd look at him and wonder if maybe, just maybe, sales wasn't my jam. Then one day, I screwed up big time. The client was livid, and my boss gave me an earful. It was totally my bad, so I apologized up and down. That's when it hit me. Maybe this gig wasn't cut out for me, and I mulled over switching jobs. Victor was the one who reeled me in. You think you're not right for this, huh? Victor seemed to read me like an open book. As I nodded, he just chuckled. I never thought I was a hotshot at this either. I just try to get into the other guy's shoes and deal accordingly. I couldn't quite wrap my head around what he meant. Are you considering what the client wants when you're making your pitch? Victor asked. His question left me in a fix. I thought I was doing just that. But according to him, my pitch always sounded the same. I kind of felt like I was parroting back what he taught me. You're too honest. You just keep echoing my teachings. You gotta use your own words and tailor your approach to the person you're dealing with, he advised. Reflecting on my past pitches, he might be onto something. Just give it a whirl, he nudged me. I can clean up your mess if needed. I talked to the client about today's hiccup, and they're willing to hear you out again. Even though they were so ticked off? I doubt it, but when I met the client again, things went surprisingly well. Victor's a real lifesaver. Since then, I tweaked my approach and boom, my sales started soaring. And within a year, I was even bringing my rookies to client meetings. Chasing after Victor's footsteps, I wasn't sure if this was the right job for me, but it became fun. But 6 months ago, the management changed gears. The head of the sales department changed, and my work life got flipped on its head. If your performance tanks, the company goes down with it. No room for dead weight here. If you're not up for it, feel free to walk. The new head would blurt without a hint of hesitation. Victor, the sales whiz, stood up for us juniors, but that led to a head-to-head with the big boss, and he ended up bowing out of the company. Harry, give me a shout if anything pops up, he told me before he stepped out of our world for good. Once he was gone, the mistakes from the folks he used to cover for started sticking out like a sore thumb. I tried to patch up things as best as I could to keep the department head off our backs. But folks started dropping like flies, unable to bear the boss's constant browbeating. And that's when the boss decided to play the equality card. Bunch of weaklings. We're gonna add more women to the sales team. Sales was a boys' club, but that changed real quick. The boss took over the hiring process, and we started seeing a wave of women joining. The boss was absolutely smitten with them, wouldn't even raise his voice. But his leniency didn't pay off in the sales charts. My morale was hitting new lows every day. The women on the sales team brought me nothing but headache-inducing customer complaints requesting, "Could you handle this, please?" And their dismissive attitude towards the clients didn't sit well with me. I tried to steer the rookies in the right direction, but any sign of sternness would land me in hot water with the boss. To add insult to injury, I caught the female reps chatting behind my back. "Just close any deal, and if there's a complaint, dump it on him," they said about me. I was burning the midnight oil handling customer complaints, and all the boss had for me was, "You're dragging your feet! Speed it up!" My motivation was nearing its end. Then one fateful day, the boss storms up to my desk, madder than a hornet. "Hey, what's this?" he barks, slamming a pile of documents onto my desk. It didn't take a genius to figure out what it was. "We're flooded with complaints from your clients," he said, pointing at the pile of grievances I've been dealing with. I managed "Yes, I see." He shot back, "Over 100! You're slacking!" Well, about that, I tried to explain, but he wasn't having any of it. "Stop making excuses! The results are right here! What gives?" He shouted, getting it all wrong. I tried to clarify. Actually, but he was not in the listening mood. "This is a serious problem. You should quit and take responsibility." I saw it coming from a mile away, so I thought, why not? "Okay, I'll take responsibility," I responded. He grunted. "Ugh, finally some sense. Bring your resignation letter by the end of today." I stole a glance at the clock. Only 10 minutes until the day ended. He probably thought it was impossible. But 5 minutes later, I was at his desk, resignation letter in hand. The boss was dumbstruck. He probably expected an apology, not a resignation. Ignoring his flabbergasted expression, I told him, "I'll handle the transition before I leave, and I like to use my remaining vacation days. It's quitting time. Thanks for everything." I gave him a respectful smile and walked out the door. I have been contemplating a career move for a while now. I'm not sure about my next step, but the atmosphere had taken a nosedive thanks to the boss and the female reps. Plus, the sizable overtime pay from all the complaint handling was burning a hole in my pocket. It was high time for a breather. I just wasn't sure about the right timing for quitting. Just to be ready, I had my resignation letter ready to go in my bag. So, my boss's words ended up being the perfect Kickstarter. Thrilled to be job-free, I hit the road solo the day after quitting, something I hadn't done in a while because of how wiped out I'd been. After a few days of just blissful driving, I thought I'd start poking around for another job, so I turned on my phone. That's when I spotted a bunch of missed calls. I had turned on my phone to enjoy my drive in peace, and turns out my old company had been trying to reach me. I was curious, but just couldn't be bothered to return the call, so I shrugged it off. Then my phone began to ring. On a lark, I answered, only to be greeted by, "Hey, what's going on?" It was my boss. "Your complaints have escalated and the phone won't stop ringing. Get your ass back here now." In the past, I might have jumped to fix things and do as he said, but I reminded him. I quit, remember? As I expected, he wouldn't listen and kept yelling. Losing patience with his stubbornness, I shot back. "How about letting me explain things in sequence?" At last, he fell silent. I grabbed the chance and dove into my side of the story. About those complaints you talked about, not a single one was my doing. They were all fallout from covering for my juniors. The new sales girls were smooth talkers, could close deals alright, but their haphazard explanations resulted in a barrage of inquiries and cancellations. I don't recall. The boss tried to interject, but I cut him off. Could you let me finish, please? He quieted down again. I didn't want to dump complaint handling on the newbie, so I handled it. I tried to talk about it to prevent repeat incidents, but no one cared enough to discuss it. Worse, they started shoving their complaints onto me. And then they had the audacity to report those complaints to you as if I was the culprit. If you'd been paying any attention, you would have realized it was bull. Unfortunately, you just swallowed their tails hook, line, and sinker and pinned it all on me. The boss was silent. I have zero interest in working with people who think it's cool to trick easy customers into contracts. And frankly, I'm done covering for such people. So when you told me to own up and quit, it was like a weight off my shoulders. I ended on a cheery note, and the boss's voice finally filtered through. So, about the complaints? With that same cheery tone, I replied, They're not my complaints. When I quit, I handed over a log of my complaint handling and suggestions for future handling. But it seems like you didn't even get that far. No wonder things got out of hand. Those girls always boasted about cutting corners and laughed off handling complaints, so even with everything laid out, they probably wouldn't lift a finger. You really didn't get it, did you? I could tell the boss was turning a shade paler, but I had no intention of bailing him out. He reaped what he sowed. I hung up. In that moment, I wondered what Victor would do. I hadn't mentioned my resignation to him, so after a long time, I invited him for a drink. He was up for it in a heartbeat, so I figured I'd fill in him about my quitting then. Can't believe Michael is still pulling the same old stunt. You could have given me the lowdown earlier, buddy. I apologize. I felt it might be rude to spill my grievances on you, especially after you left the company. I wanted to be the kind of mentor you were, always backing the juniors, but it seems that was a pipe dream. That's my only regret. But Victor dismissed it with a wave of his hand. I wouldn't even lose sleep over those guys. You've put your back into it, didn't you? He clapped me on my shoulder, and my eyes misted up. As we were unwinding over drinks, I heard someone exclaim, "So this is your hideout." Much to my surprise, it was Michael who'd stroll into the bar. "What brings you here?" Turns out one of our female reps spotted me from outside the bar and tipped him off. I goofed up by picking a spot near the office to meet Victor, and worse still, we snagged a table by the window. Who would have thought? Need something? Victor inquired, catching the boss off guard. "Oh, you are here too. This has your fingerprints all over it." Victor and I exchanged looks and heaved a sigh. "Hold on, what do you mean? Victor's got zip to do with this." When I said that, the boss retorted, "Then you should hightail it back to the company pronto." Why the heck should I do that? I was flabbergasted, but Victor, wearing a mischievous grin, stepped in. "Just out of curiosity, how's it hanging back at the office?" The boss started to spit venom. "Those women stabbed me in the back and dumped all the complaint handling on me, declaring it's my job." The women he was griping about had to be the sales rep. That sounded just like them. I've hit a wall with a constant onslaught of calls. The boss was practically groveling, but I gave it to him straight. "You're dragging your feet, boss. Isn't that what you preached to me?" His face blanched. "Did I say that? If so, I'm sorry, but I need a hand. If I can't mop up these complaints, I'm looking at a slashed bonus and demotion." Victor and I cracked up hearing his plea. "So that's why you're badgering us." I chimed in, and Victor couldn't resist adding, "Always looking out for number one, huh?" The boss simply hung his head. I laid it on him. I figured out that I never want to end up like you. I feel like a fool for busting my hump under your so-called leadership. I did my best to have the sales reps' backs, but if you, their boss, are oblivious to all that and they won't adjust their attitude, I don't see these complaints dying down anytime soon. If you're too chicken to handle it, why not let them take over? Though I see it escalating until it's past the point of no return. It's only a matter of time before this whole thing goes viral. Victor bobbed his head in agreement. Now that I'm officially off your roster, do me a favor and lose my number. I'm blocking you, just FYI. I couldn't help but beam as I delivered the final blow. See ya! Wait just a second! Michael must have been at his wit's end. He was all over me like white on rice. I shrugged him off, saying, "No room for dead weight here. Weren't you the one telling me to pack my bags? You can't just try to cash in on me without owning up to your words and saying sorry. Talk about having your cake and eating it too. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way." The boss started groveling out of the blue. Victor couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. "Sorry won't cut it, Chief. Harry here is a stand-up guy. Time you kicked yourself for not seeing that." His words warmed my heart, and I made it crystal clear to the boss. "Stop dragging me and Victor into your mess." Michael, looking like he finally got the message, staggered out of the bar. I kept true to my word and blocked the company's number then and there. Later, a buddy from another department filled me in on the latest sales department drama. Turns out the complaint situation spiraled out of control. Even the big shots are trying to douse the flames, but there's no end in sight given the sheer numbers. The ladies in sales are crying their eyes out dealing with the backlash, and the boss has been dumped down the ladder. Word is, he's up to his eyeballs in complaints, looking more like a ghost every day. The gossip spread like wildfire, and the internet started buzzing with bad reviews. It got so hot, it even made the digital news. That company might be toast. I hopped on board with a company Victor and a friend kick-started. I get to flex my sales muscles, the team's a dream, and it's a blast to work there. "Harry, let's hit the road for that meeting," Victor called out, and I was on my feet. "You know, it's wild that our old place really tanked, huh?" I nodded at his words. The place we bailed on probably never pulled itself together. Its reputation tanked, and it went belly up. The one saving grace about working at that place? Meeting Victor. Now I'm at a gig where they actually appreciate me, and I've never felt better.